Welcome back to Just Giants with Grump and the Cranky Fan, the best damn podcast for the best damn football team. I am your host, the Football Grump, and with me as always is Mike, the Cranky Fan.
Bonjour, Grump. How are you? I'm about 5 hours returned from my week-long trip to Paris, so I don't even know what time of night it is right now. Got home in time to watch Game 3 of my Lightning. We have a series again, so all you people out there, and you know who you are, we have a big series ahead of us. It's just begun.
Well, I mean, also in other sports news, the New Jersey Generals have clinched a playoff spot for the USFL. They are 7-1 on a 7-game winning streak. We're all excited for that. Big game, big stuff.
I don't know how we can pay attention to anything right now. There's so much going on.
Yeah, so you've been gone, and we took the last week off. I kind of want to approach this offseason a little bit in more vacation mode. You know, we went really, really hard for draft stuff, and I thought that was really necessary. What I don't want to do is make a ton of unnecessary content, and things like the OTAs are going on, which is a high time for overreaction, panic, and fluff.
Right.
And I don't want to be, and there's nothing wrong with any of that, and I consume it the same as everybody else. I just don't have anything to add that's any of that. I'm not going to add any panic. I'm not going to overreact, and I have no insight into any fluff stories. So,
well, I think that's kind of one of the purposes why we do this podcast in the first place is we try to keep things in perspective, and we try not to, we want to be the opposite of what a hot take is. We want to be not a cold take, but just kind of a realistic take on things. And I think OTAs are one of those things because there's nothing else going on. In the absence of any news, when you hear anything, you tend to think of, what does that mean? It's the end of the world if somebody's wearing a red jersey or something going on. So I think this is a good opportunity to kind of listen. The news is kind of interesting because we're in the middle of Nowheresville right now in early June, but let's put in real perspective what it is. These are the first opportunity for the team, especially this year with a new coaching staff, to understand how things will be run, what the new culture is going to be like. It's not a time for install. It's not a time to prepare for any particular opponent. It's to get you ready for when it's time to have real practice and real training camp, what your expectations are going to be. That's all this really is. So, worrying about who's hurt or not, worrying about who's behind, who has more reps, that's not the point of all this. And you shouldn't, if any news leaks out, freak out about anything.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the thing is that OTAs are positioned right after the draft when everybody thinks that they have just gotten so much better as a team, and it's your first time seeing those players in action and seeing the alignments you dreamed of, and it's your first time hearing a lot of coaches talk to the media and stuff like that. So they're responding to questions and they're giving some insight. And so any little nugget of something that they give us is something that gets extrapolated into this whole conspiracy theory with thread and pins. And I'm not going to be one of those people. This is just going to be just kind of like a quick general wrap up of the OTAs, really.
Yeah. The purpose of this really is for rookies and guys that were signed in the offseason to learn. This is basically where I park. This is where the facility is. This is where the practice room is. This is where, my tight end room is. This is how all these things work. So you're not wasting time in August on the mechanics of doing my job. Those are the most important things trying to come out of this stuff. And getting really introduced to your position coach, getting introduced to what he expects of you, getting how he works, how he barks at you, how you respond to him. It's all of that stuff to make things later on in the season run more smoothly.
Which is exactly why these things are voluntary, but also encouraged when you have a brand new coaching staff. Sure. Everything you just said is a perfect wrap up for that right there. Voluntary, but if you've got a new coaching staff, probably a good idea to be there. So the OTAs, as of this moment, have concluded. This week kicks off mandatory minicamp, June 7th, 8th, and 9th. And then they believe they'll have off until late July when training camp starts. And I don't believe we have any of those dates or anything like that, or any information if it's open to the public, though I believe it will be.
I believe it. I think I heard.
I don't know if it was reported, but I think it's been leaked.
I think it's been leaked. It'll be open to the public. I don't think exact dates in the schedule have not been released. Although the preseason schedule did come out.
And in addition to that, the Jets and Giants, I believe, are having joint practices for the preseason game, the first time since 2005 when there was a brawl.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I believe Jeremy Shockey was involved.
Oh, shocker. Imagine that.
So, all right. So, in recapping, the Cranky fan's been gone. He's been on the other side of the planet for a little while.
I've been in France and I've been in Lightning World, so I've been a little bit distracted. So this is a good opportunity for me to catch up along with everybody else. So what actually went on during OTAs, what I should take away, what I should really be worried about, what I should care about.
Yeah, and last we left, we were kind of responding to the James Bradberry signing in Philly kind of thing, and that is a huge detriment to this roster, losing James Bradberry. I do find Giants fans trying to rationalize it as him apparently being bad last year as some kind of like dead weight is silly to me. But so the Giants, there were some roster moves, right? Let's start there. In the wake of the James Bradberry thing, they added 5 guys. 3 of them are defensive backs. They added Maurice Kennedy, who was formerly a Raven with Wink Martindale, Khalil Dorsey, and Michael Jacquet, who is, I have no idea how to say his name. Maybe that's right.
It sounds good to me.
He's a former Eagle, a 2020 undrafted free agent out of Louisiana. In addition to that, they also got Henry Black, a safety, and defensive end Jalen Holmes, who's a former Viking who worked with defensive line coach Andre Patterson. To make room for all of that, they released, real quick, quarterback Brian Lewerke is now officially gone. Safety Jordan Mosley, Trent Harris, Raymond Johnson, and Antonio Valentino, I thought were all kind of interesting ones to be released.
Valentino, the Gator for last year, defensive lineman, didn't make hardly any impact with Florida and made even less with the Giants. So,
well, he's secured himself a decent amount of guaranteed cash as a undrafted free agent signing, which is why it was somewhat surprising to me. Mm-hmm.
So a lot of these signings, it sounds like they have prior ties to this coaching staff. Are they really more just to help with install as we get to training camp, and we're not really worrying about them for being on the actual roster in September, or is there something where these guys are going to be fighting for actual positions in the final?
So I think that there are there's 3 levels to panic signings, I think, especially with new coaching staffs, right? There is the help with install guy. Those are usually vets. Those are usually seasoned vets who have been around for like 4 to 5 years. They probably worked with that same coach for 3 of those years. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Then there's the we need bodies at this position. Who are some people that we're familiar with, since that's all we can afford? And I think that's where guys like Maurice Kennedy come from. And, maybe Michael Jacquet is somebody that they're familiar with, though they've never really worked with. And he's a name and he can be afforded. And then I think that there's, the third level is I used to work with this guy and I really liked him and he just needs a shot. And I think that's where Jalen Holmes maybe fits in. Because, the defensive line is not one that is, razor thin with talent. And they released Raymond Johnson as one of those guys who's not a bad defensive lineman in any regard anyway, as far as an undrafted free agent goes. And then they went out and got Jalen Holmes, who was playing kind of in a 4-3 style defense with Andre Patterson in Minnesota, so there had to be some reason he was taken. And I have to think that he fits into that third category of he just needs a shot and he's cheap. Who can? Mm-hmm. Let's just get him. You know what I mean? Why not?
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Did you think it was? And did any of those names of being released jump out to you? Raymond Johnson, Trent Harris?
Not really.
Nothing really, right?
I think you're going to see a lot of jostling for making salaries fit more than anything right now. And I think as you're trying to fortify to get ready for training camp for bodies, so you have guys to finish all the reps that we need to have. So these seem to be like rearranging deck chairs to me on a cruise ship. Nothing
You're absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, like, these bottom of the roster guys, they tend to be personal favorites of the coaching staff. I mean, like, talent wise, measurement wise, there's something wrong with all of them to make them bottom of the roster guys. You know, wrong with them. Not saying they can't overcome whatever it is, but there's something that makes them bottom of the roster guys. And they tend to be just, you know, favorites. So I always see this as like a big like guys like Raymond Johnson were probably a favorite. Trent Harris was probably a big favorite for the prior coaching staff. Just new coaching staff. They brought in their new favorites. They're bottom of the roster guys, and it's exactly like you said. It's deck chairs, man.
Anytime a new boss comes in, for whether you're a professional football coach or you are a new mayor or whatever you are, you're going to bring in your people.
It's kind of like T-shirts. You're throwing out old T-shirts. You're buying new T-shirts. At the end of the day, it's still a T-shirt. You're not going to wear it out to a really nice dinner. but it's new T-shirts. I like this T-shirt better. I don't know.
Yeah, you're gonna wear it at your snack table in front of the TV. You're not gonna wear it.
Exactly. Perfect, man. We're always killing it with analogies, man.
Oh.
Best analogy game in the podcast business. One little interesting nugget, and I said that we don't really get involved in fluff stuff, but I just thought this was interesting in general as part of the interview process. Per Art Stapleton, coaches, like assistant coaches that were hired already, such as defensive backs coach Jerome Henderson, were part of the interview process for Wink Martindale. You and I both work in the real world. This isn't our like day job. This isn't our only job. So as far as interview process goes, I feel like that's pretty interesting. That's beyond collaborative. That's like, from what I was reading, it sounded like they were actively part of the interview process.
Wait, I understand something. So new assistant coaches that were brought in were not hired by
I think some of them were already hired. They were hired by the head coach, but not the defensive coordinator. So Dable had hired some assistants before a defensive coordinator.
Well, that I find interesting. I think it's more interesting that Dable is hiring assistant, position coaches before they have the coordinators in.
So I think Jerome Henderson was already here, and I believe his contract didn't necessarily terminate just because Joe Judge's did.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that he was confirmed that he was keeping his job, and that may be done because he is a very good secondary coach, and they didn't want him to leave.
Yeah. I wonder if it's, this might be splitting hairs a little bit, maybe not necessarily interviewing, but kind of fact gathering.
Okay.
Going through these, through the interview process.
Yeah, that could be. I think that's likely.
Because it doesn't make, from an organizational standpoint, any sense to have a subordinate, picking and choosing who he wants his boss to be. That's not.
I think he was involved in the interview process. I don't know that he was involved in the selection process. I don't think that's true. Mm-hmm. But I think he was involved. I guess he had like input into basically what some of the answers were, some of the questions maybe to ask him, and maybe some of the film stuff. I mean, I assume that in these interviews they have like some film things, and they ask them very pointed questions at times.
It seems a little unusual, again, from an organizational standpoint, because when you're hiring these positions of higher up the food chain, they're going to be implementing their philosophy, their strategy, their vision, how they want to do things. So if we're talking about film study and somebody's coming in and says, this is the way I want to do things, and if the subordinate's like, well, that seems weird to me, it doesn't matter what he thinks anymore. It's what that coordinator is going to say, that it says goes. So
yeah, I don't know. It certainly sounds interesting to me. It's nothing I've ever really heard of.
For nothing else, it sounds like, well, you're still under contract, and before we let you go, we're going to give you something to do, so you're not just sitting around.
I don't know. Well, I don't know about that.
Yeah, it seems a little strange.
So let's move on to injury stuff here. So there were lots of guys in red jerseys. Now, to be clear, it's June. You know what I mean? Like, it's the very beginning of June. So when I say this, some guys are going to be at much different levels than other guys in terms of their injury rehab process. Like Nick Gates, for instance, is probably way, 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 way further into the past, or further away from returning to playing football than, say, somebody like, I don't know, Dexter Lawrence.
Well, mean, the bottom line is, again, this is June, like you said, and they're not doing anything really football activity related that much. There's no sense at all of risking anything with guys unless they are 100% ready to go.
Yeah, if there's any chance of things getting worse from doing it, then there's no reason to do it.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of red jerseys to be handed out. So just don't take this too seriously. But I'm going to run through the list of names, and they're in no particular order. They're just kind of random, actually. Kadarius Toney, not surprising.
Sterling right there. Yeah. As soon as that came out, everybody. First of all, when you hear, I thought this was pretty funny that when somebody said, "Well, KT has one," it's like, well, which KT are we talking about now? Kayvon Thibodeau or Kadarius Toney?
And the answer is both.
Exactly, but now you have to be more specific when you say, "Oh, KT," because we had a KT last year, we had 2 this year. So, and the answer, you're right, turned out to be both. But again, anything associated with Kadarius Toney is going to have everybody freak out, and I know I am the resident Kadarius Toney defender and apologist on this show, but again, just because he's wearing a red jersey in June does not mean anything. It's not related to an air gun he had 6 years ago at Florida, and it's not related to, can he read the playbook or not?
It's also not related to any injury that he had last year, so exactly. it's not a further aggravation. And again, it may not even be an injury. Yeah. Like if this were a week 4 practice, he may be practicing all week. That's something to keep in mind with all of these red jerseys. If the name sounds like a surprise to you, there's a good chance that it's not major enough that would have held them out of a game.
Hey, 2 weeks ago, you were all mad because he's not going to show up for OTAs. Now he's there and it's a different thing. So, if you have a hard-on for the guy, you have a hard-on for the guy. And I know what to tell you about it. But, this is just... It's an extra precaution for something that's 3-4 months away from a regular season. That's it.
So besides Kadarius Toney, Sterling Shepard, who obviously suffered Achilles injury very late last year, Richie James, Colin Johnson, Andrew Thomas, who had it sounded like a clean-out style surgery.
Right.
Otherwise, it's kind of whatever. Nick Gates, who again may never play football again, for all I know. Matt Parrott, who is recovering from an ACL injury, Jameel Douglas, Dexter Lawrence. I don't even know he is moving around and doing things in practice, so he's limited in practice with that red jersey. Kayvon Thibodeau, who just tweaked a little something and is doing work on the side and doing some drills. Blake Martinez, returning from a week 3 ACL injury and is doing work. Cam Brown, TJ Brunson, Rodarius Williams, Darren Evans. Rodarius Williams may actually play a pivotal role, so he's also recovering from an ACL injury that he sustained, I want to say, towards the middle of the season, but on the early side last year. One notable person that is not in a red precautionary jersey, Shane Lemieux. Shane Lemieux has been getting first-team left guard reps. It was revealed that Bobby Johnson and Brian Daboll actually had interviews with him in the 2020 draft process 2 years ago. He actually thought that Buffalo was going to draft him. They didn't end up doing that, but now we can move into the offense here. So the Giants drafted Josh Ezeudu, who played primarily left guard, right? But he did play 4 positions, really 3 positions: left guard, left tackle, right tackle, and one snap at right guard. So that really doesn't count. But extremely versatile guy. And now maybe they really like Shane Lemieux more than we thought. Maybe he really does have a stranglehold on that left guard position. It's important to note that he was kind of... without opening a can of worms, last year the Giants really were banking on the offensive line that they created and the ideal starting offensive line being healthy and taking a step forward. And a big problem was that Shane Lemieux got hurt right around now. This is when he got hurt, and never got right again. He didn't really participate much in training camp. He took, I think, one series at left guard in week 1 and was done for the year. So we don't even really know anything about Shane Lemieux right now. So the fact that the coaching staff is giving him every opportunity, and he's not, like I thought, so far anyway, not in a constant rotation with Josh Azudu, Ben Bredesen, Max Garcia. There is no constant rotation there. He seems to be running with the ones from everything I'm reading.
Well, again, let's not get crazy because.
Well, not getting crazy. I do think it's interesting that they are giving him more of a chance than everybody else. That's kind of indisputable.
Yeah, I mean, the benefit for a guy like Shane Lemieux is a new coaching staff is a clean slate, and if he's healthy, not with the red jersey on, means he's ready to participate, and he gets that fresh opportunity. You're right. That was the beginning of the end of this offensive line, was him going down, along with the centers going down and everything, with Nick Gates going down as well. But I fully expect him, if he's healthy, to battle and compete for that left guard spot. And I would not be surprised if he wins it.
No. At this point, I would not. Well, I would have been surprised if he won it, being that we didn't really know what he was going to be like last year. But I am surprised that they're giving him more of a shot than everybody else so far. I'm just going to quick run through some alignments that we saw. A first-team alignment that we saw. Remember, Andrew Thomas had a red non-contact jersey, so for portions of practice, he was not there.
And quite frankly, I'm completely fine with
that. Yes, me too.
He's not a guy who's fighting for a position, for a job. He's not fighting for starting. This is as cornerstone as this franchise as we have, him. Basically the 2 tackles now. And something, if we're going to save a little wear and tear on his body for drills in June, I'm fine with it.
Yeah. So with him out, there seemed to be a consistent first-team starting line. And that was from right to left now: Evan Neal, Mark Lewinsky, John Feliciano, Shane Lemieux. And then we're expecting Andrew Thomas there, obviously. So 2 guys that they worked in at left tackle were Corey Cunningham with the first team and Josh Azudu. Very interesting. I would not read too much into that. That probably will never happen. But it's interesting that they are flexing that versatility muscle with Josh.
What level of detail are they doing in these drills? I mean, we're not doing full.
No, this is not massive.
Are they even going against a defensive line?
Yes.
Okay, but they're not doing anything more than dancing in shorts?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, just dancing in shorts.
Gotcha.
The second team stuff, that's where we're seeing a lot more shifting around, and I'm not going to get into second team stuff too much. But again, Ben Bredesen and Max Garcia are and Josh Azudu, they're all kind of rotating around that left guard spot and their center spot. They're kind of fighting. They're kind of working that stuff out. They're finding out who the second team guys are all over the place. But it seems like they already have an ideal first team set up, and I think that's kind of interesting. In regards to Evan Neal, rookie on the offensive line, the guy that we're expecting the most out of. Mark Lewinsky, who's been playing next to him, called him dominant. Any thoughts? Remember, Lewinsky is the lone vet on this team, too.
Well, that's my expectation, that he's going to be dominant. I mean, if we go back to January, we thought he could have been the first pick in the draft. And if that's the case, I expect that offensive lineman to be dominant. So that's good. I mean, what I want to see now is, he comes in and shows a really good work ethic. He's picking up, whatever instruction on the first, rep, that has to be told, repeatedly told what to do. And, that's good. Those are the things I want to hear. If we have domination on both sides of the line like that, that's huge cornerstones for building for the future.
Yeah, and I kind of am. I mean, you know me and me in the right guard position. I've complained about it for forever, but
as long as I've known you.
Yeah, but see, most of the time that was built on the philosophy that your right tackle was, just manageable. I think that you can get by with a manageable right tackle for cheap if you have yourself a badass at right guard. But right now, the Giants have badasses, we think, at both tackles. And if that's the route you go, I think they're really just a badass away at center, and you can kind of fudge the guards at that point. Once you have the edges and the middle shore up like that, you get somebody like I mean, I'm just not right now, but if you had a Jason Kelsey type player at center, a Pro Bowl center, with those two guys at tackle, I think you can just plug in some basic bitch guards and have yourself a dominant offensive line.
Well, the potential's there. I mean, he has to produce. You have to see him actually do it on
Right.
the field. But we are set up for that, and that's right now in early June. That's all I can hope for is have the best potential for success, and I think we've done that right now with both tackles.
And just to kind of put a closing note on this Shane Lemieux, Josh Izudu thing, I'm trying my best not to forget that Shane Lemieux was taking some snapping stuff a couple of years ago to potentially move to center. So I wonder if that's the long game there. If Shane Lemieux, they like him enough to move him to center, because that's the one spot that Josh Izudu did not play.
So the theme of this is that almost every lineman in this rotation, if we're talking 8, 9 deep, has a backup position they can play. Even the two tackles could switch from left to right.
That's true.
Necessary.
You're right. Yeah,
you're talking about guards who can be center, and you're talking about left guard can be right guard, and left guard could be center. So that's something where that could cover up for lack of depth. Also, is having the availability of switching around and being versatile to where we need to plug them in. Also, if there's the number of guys that we can trust in that rotation is smaller than we'd like to be. It sounds like that circle of trust is getting a little bigger than it's been in the last couple of years, which is the most optimal. But you can internally lower that circle of trust by guys if you can move them around to play multiple positions and keep them on the field.
Absolutely. Versatility is going to be key, I think, especially in these early rebuilding years. One other little nugget here, Daniel Bellinger was getting a ton of reps, I was reading, at tight end. We have ourselves a guy who can do some blocking, and I think is more of a secret at receiver, as a receiver in the tight end game as well. So I'm anxious to see how they use Daniel Bellinger.
Yeah, the wide receiver room looks better on paper than I believe it to be on the field right now. I mean, they're names, but I'm a little worried about the production level we're going to get from these wide receivers. So anything we can get from the tight end room will make me feel better, and especially early on, or at least until I see things on the field. I see Sterling Shepard actually back to 100%. I see, our two juke guys actually contributing more than just occasional plays and stuff.
Well, here's something else. They are really working Saquon Barkley in the receiving game. I was reading that some of the reps also involve alignments where he's got Breda in the backfield, which is something I've always wondered. Like, if Saquon Barkley is this kind of offensive weapon more than he is just a running back, then why not have him not even line up as a running back and have another running back in the game? Or have two guys in the backfield? Why not? Part of what makes him so good is you don't really know how you need to defend him on certain plays. Is he going to run between the tackles, or is he going to use speed outside? Are you going to get him in space and throw him the ball? I mean, that's part of the thing. The more ambiguity you'd add, you'd think that you're helping to that, right?
Well, for no other reason, it gives you more to prepare for during the week.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You have to worry about an expanded playbook of where is this guy going to be. That's more time they're spending, the coaches in the film room and the guys on the practice field. That's going to leave something that's not being 100% prepared for. So, just the appearance, of Saquon maybe lined up in the slot, or maybe doing this or maybe doing that, it helps your advantage. Whether they actually do it or not is another matter. But
Yeah, I agree with you. I think. I think this shows to the creativity of the offensive minds that we have now versus I don't want to continually shit on Jason Garrett. But also Pat Shurmur. I mean, these are they not old heads of the the NFL offense world? Maybe.
I don't look to them as being guys of the 21st century.
Okay. Yeah. And Pat Shurmur, I think, is better than Jason Garrett. I think he does a lot of things I agree with. But, I mean, he also wasn't using Saquon Barkley uber creatively or anything like that. We're not seeing any Kyle Shanahan, Deebo Samuel shit, right?
Yeah, well, also, though, this may be the first time in quite a long time that Saquon Barkley is 100% healthy.
Yeah, but he was healthy under Shurmur.
Yeah, I guess. But, I mean, this is back to, if we're talking really more The complaints are more about Jason Garrett.
No, I mean, yeah, yes, the complaints are more about Jason Garrett, and he was hurt during the whole time that Jason Garrett had. That's fair. But either way, this is still speaking, I think, to the creativity of the offensive minds. Is they're already using him more and seeing him in different spots than we've seen so far with him, and we've had 4 years with him.
Well, also I think too, you tell me like the wide receiver room back under Pat Shermer, how deep was it then?
Oh yeah, that was not deep at all.
Exactly. So.
But yeah.
I don't know. I see. I don't feel like the wide receiver room is that deep at all right now, and I think that's it's almost like a necessary evil to have to use Saquon Barkley lined up more. Besides the fact that the skill set's so unique and he can be successful catching the ball in the backfield, it's almost like you have to because, again, like we were talking about the tight ends just before. I'm worried about the amount of weapons we have to make Daniel Jones successful until guys prove themselves, whether they're healthy again or they just prove themselves on this level to be good. And I think it's just necessary to have him out there because he's a guy who can catch the ball, can be very electric when healthy with the ball in his hands. So it just seems to make it's almost more of a necessity that they do it now than maybe before.
Yeah.
Especially when we are really, as much as we are trying to develop an offense, we are trying to do a true evaluation of Daniel Jones. I mean, that window of time to do that is a finite amount of time. It's not like the offense is like, well, this offense over the next year or two is going to develop and get more players. And we have to make a decision on Daniel Jones by next year. And we need to accelerate that. So I think that's part of the process.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think Barkley has only really had that first year where he had Beckham on the team, that he really had a good wide receiver room and he was healthy at the same time. Mm-hmm. And then the following year he got hurt, right? It's the second year he got hurt, and Correct. Beckham was already traded, and they replaced him with Golden Tate, and that's a huge downgrade. And ever since then, we've had a worse wide receiver room. So that stands to reason. Piggybacking off what you're saying about Daniel Jones, one little note, and it's a little note because I don't really know. Different beat writers were saying different things, and I don't know how much they can see and how much football stuff they really know to be accurately describing. But Jones continues to do a lot of work with his legs. He's moving around a lot. He's running a lot of RPO. These are things that I was reading. Movement in the pocket. A lot of emphasis on him using his legs. And so, again, that seems to be part of their evaluation of Daniel Jones. They're going to continue using his legs in different ways. I just don't know if it's going to continue being those zone read runs or if they want him moving around behind the line of scrimmage more, rolling pockets out, and utilizing his legs in that. Remember, Mike Kafka is the quarterback's coach now. So, Patrick Mahomes does a lot of pocket manipulation and moving around behind the line of scrimmage, as well as controlled runs. So, I mean, I don't really know what it is, but they are definitely going to continue using his legs.
I think a lot of it comes back to what they tried to do in the offseason. It was, they had conversations with everybody in the offense and especially the quarterbacks and him, what do you like to do? What are you most comfortable with? What in the playbook are you most comfortable running? What type of offense are you comfortable running? And they're going to build an offense around the strengths and the preferences and the comfort level of their quarterback. So, the fact that he's doing a lot of, movement back there, whether it's designated run plays or just, moving around, being comfortable, it might be what he prefers to be. It might be part of that feedback also that he's provided. That might make it more successful.
Yeah, that could be. I just, I wonder how much of that. And remember also, Dable and them, they come from the Josh Allen as well.
And also, I think, too, that, until this offensive line shows it on the field that they're improved, it's a question mark.
Yeah.
We have a new right tackle who's going to be a rookie. We said a bunch of names. Shane Lemieux hasn't played in a year. This might be a little bit of a safety for the offensive line until they really start gelling. It's not going to be ready on week one and be like, okay, we're 5 blocks of granite ready to block.
That's a good point.
Time for them also.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, and having him being at least a little bit, mobile, just to kind of buy an extra second or two for somebody or whatever, I think it helps them as well. Same as having tight ends that can help block a little bit more. Working on that room as well. So I think it's all part of that build and install of these new, offensive system that we're doing going forward, and getting comfortable with everything.
Switching over to the defense, there's a lot less to talk about here.
Okay.
Most of what the defense alignments are in 2-4-5 formations. So, as expected with Wink Martindale, this puts a lot of DBs on the field and less emphasis on the big guys up front. And instead, getting to the quarterback with the athletes, whether that be at edge, at off-ball linebacker, or the secondary. So just a couple of the lines that we saw, the rotations we saw were Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams on the defensive line, Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari on the outside, with Martinez and Crowder in the middle, and then on the perimeter, Adoree Jackson and Aaron Robinson, with Darnay Holmes in the slot, and McKinney and Love back deep. That's not too bad. I mean, does anything stick out to you as being an obvious weak spot?
The secondary scares me a little bit.
The secondary scares me a lot. I mean, I'm okay with Darnay Holmes in the slot. That's fine. I really am. I'm okay with Darnay Holmes there. He's going to struggle a little bit, but he's not bad. It's just Aaron Robinson as a starter on the outside I don't love. I think he can do it. But I just like him so much more in the slot. I think he's a starter in the slot and he's a backup on the outside.
I think it's something we're going to have to deal with in 2022 until we can have the opportunity to upgrade that position next year via draft or free agency. I think he gets some help with, what I like to hear as you're rattling off those names, that all of a sudden you're talking about, the guys up front, the Dexter Lawrences and the Leonard Williams. Then you talk about Azeez Ojulari and
Kayvon Thibodeau.
All of a sudden that sounds threatening.
Well, also, I also think that guys like Tay Crowder, when you have those guys up front, if you send Tay Crowder in on a blitz, I think fans are going to like him a little bit more. Doing things like that, like letting him play more downhill, that's what he's a little bit better at. And I think when he has guys around him, in front of him that are doing better work than what he's used to, I think he'll make more splash plays.
Yeah, I just... Again, as you rattle off those names in the front, it just made me feel like the secondary is going to have some help. They're not going to be on an island by themselves where they're going to, quarterback's going to have all day to throw. He's going to pick them apart. I think it's they'll be put in the best position to succeed. Whether they're the guys that do it, it's going to be a separate issue. And there's going to be some teams we're going to play against. I'm going to probably be awake on Saturday night before the game because of them. But again, I think these are stopgap guys as we build this secondary. So nothing is frightening to me.
Yeah. What is frightening to me is the fact that, the starting corner is someone I'm really worried about. And on top of that, every member of our secondary has an injury history. So if I don't even feel good about our second starting corner, I certainly don't feel good about our backups.
Here's my justification, is that, we're both alike, that, we knew we couldn't fix everything all in 1 year.
Yeah, exactly.
And as I sit here, in the first, you're listening to this, the first Monday of June, I don't go back and say, well, instead of taking this guy, in the draft, or signing this guy, we should have did this in the secondary. I'm comfortable with what we've done, that we're just going to have to live with it for now, and it's the best we can do in the situation that we were put under. So, there's, again, no timetable that we have to win the Super Bowl this year. This roster rebuild is not going to be completed this year. You could do the best you can, and this is unfortunately the consequence of the mistakes that were made and the bad decisions and the bad luck we may have had. And it's just all right, that's fine. We'll deal with it this year, and we don't have nearly as long of a laundry list next offseason of things that must be addressed, red flags, sirens blaring problems next year that we did this year, so we can target and address next year. That's how I'm going to get through this season without, banging my head against the wall.
I absolutely agree with you. We knew that there was going to be an issue. It just seems weird that we hired Wink Martindale and didn't give him a secondary. But either way.
Well, we didn't hire Wink Martindale in a 1-year contract and say you have 1 year with us.
That's true too.
The expectation is we are going to build a roster around him. He's going to be here for a few years, so that by year 3, maybe even a little sooner, he has all the pieces that he can fully implement his defense. And you have a coordinator that we'd be very excited about and be a very exciting defense and create a lot of havoc. But again, we didn't build this roster for 1 year. We didn't hire coaches for 1 year. So I'm okay with all that.
Notable rookies on the second team defense are inside linebacker Micah McFadden got second team reps at Cordell Flott got second team slot reps. Dane Belton got second team safety reps. And it's important to note that these guys are mid-round rookies. McFadden, Flott, Belton, fourth.
Who is not playing due to red jerseys or otherwise? Who's missing?
I think just Rodarius Williams.
Okay, so that's interesting then. So they're not like, well, they're playing because half the secondary is on the bicycle or something.
Yeah, no. So those guys, they're getting second team reps. They're mid-round draft pick guys. That's probably where they belong. They shouldn't be handed anything. Now you throw them in with the second team and you see where they kind of fit on your roster. And I think that's a good idea. Guys like that may get elevated. Micah McFadden by training camp might start getting more and more first team reps in Tay Crowder's place or in Blake Martinez's place based on however he's recovering from his injury. Cordell Flott might get slot team reps in first team slot reps in place of Darnay Holmes, maybe. Personally, I still think Cordell Flott has outside man cover skills, but he's also really young. They can take their time with him. Dane Belton, he might wind up getting some third safety reps that come in dime nickel situations,
Let's think about this. The last opportunity you have to shape your roster comes during training camp cutdowns, right? So you're taking an educated guess with late round draft picks. Are these guys are going to stick around as just being guys who are going to do reps during training camp and then get rid of them, or are they really going to stick? So I think you'd want to see these guys more often than not to see what you're dealing with. So if you have to, you can have more of a plan going into, after cut down day of guys you may want to pick up of real needs you might have. Like, we need a second team slot corner. It's not working out these guys we have. So I think putting them in the position you can see them as much as possible. And these OTAs, we kind of made fun of them before. They're still are important to coaches. I think that's why you're going to see these guys maybe more than we thought, just to test as much and have as much information to say, do we need to move on for them or not, earlier or not?
Yeah, and I think that depth charts right now obviously don't mean anything. I know I'm kind of focusing a lot on that, but only because I expected a lot more cycling right now, and there are certain guys that are not cycling as much as I really thought they were. Shane Lemieux kind of being given that left guard spot versus Aaron Robinson and Michael Jacquet are kind of rotating that first corner spot, gives you a different sense of confidence for the two question mark positions on the roster, right?
Well, here's what I would say to that is, this is the first year that this coaching staff is running their OTA program. We don't know what they are looking for or what they're trying to do.
Also true.
I think once we get into the third and fourth year and we see patterns of things, like, okay, this is the corner they're looking at for this reason, or this is how they run their OTAs, or they may be more rookie heavy because they want to instill the reps on how things will be done, as opposed to guys who've been around a little longer, may get a little bit of benefit. We don't know exactly yet. And I think I wouldn't read too much into that now, especially because we're still a little ambiguous of what they're trying to do.
Right. Exactly. So guys like that might move up and down the depth chart in training camp when it starts to be more important. So don't be surprised if come late July, Cordell Flott is still in the second team, but Jacquet is getting all the first team reps in place of Aaron Robinson at corner, or I don't know if maybe Josh Azudu is suddenly getting more first team training camp reps than Shane Lemieux. It's not going to be overly surprising if anything like that happens.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of withhold judgment. I think for the first preseason game, you're going to get the first real look of what the coaches think, and they're going to have enough body of work from a whole summer. That's what the first time we were looking at it and saying, okay, these are the real battles. This is what's really going to happen. So
yeah, yeah, I mean that's really kind of it for now, based on what we got out of the OTAs. Like I said, mandatory minicamp is this week, the 7th, 8th, and 9th of June.
Mm-hmm.
And then we are kind of just in purgatory until late July.
Well, we've been in purgatory about a decade.
Well, wait a minute. There's more important than that. Obviously, the USFL playoffs and championship will be going on, so we'll have episodes. We'll have stuff to talk about.
Let's talk about what's seriously important to everybody out there. I just came back 6 hours ago from France. In 17 hours, I board a plane down to Tampa for Game 4 for Lightning Rangers. That's what we're all interested in right now. Everybody who's in earshot of this, either the three of you that are Lightning fans or the rest of the audience that are Ranger fans. So that is what's exciting right now. I'm sorry, Grump, that you're a Devil fan and your season ended in January, but I just want all the Ranger fans to know out there, I do love you all. I know, it's all been good fun. Don't take it personally, anything I say, but this series is not over, as I try to tell everybody after Game 1 and Game 2. I know you guys are all in love with Igor as your goalie. You think he's the second coming of Jesus Christ. We have our own Jesus also behind the pipes.
They don't love you.
He doesn't love you. So no, it's all been fun. Hit me up as always at the Cranky Fan if you want to talk hockey during this civil war of the Just Giants fan base with one of its hosts. But it's all been great.
Yeah, and as always, follow me at football_grump, where I am probably the leading beat reporter for the New Jersey Generals. I'm probably the only one tweeting about the New Jersey Generals. And I'm.
Has there been any Herschel Walker like running backs on this team?
Dude, there is. New Jersey has a legit. Darius Victor is a legit NFL running back. So. You think I'm kidding around, but so he was signed to the New Orleans Saints, where he was behind a roster of Adrian Peterson, Mark Ingram, and Alvin Kamara. So he didn't make that team, and then signed to the XFL.
31 other teams passed.
No. Then the pandemic, he signed to an XFL roster when he was a late cut, and then the pandemic shut down the XFL. So he didn't. This is his first action since he signed to the Saints. And he leads the league in rushing. But, dude, you have to go ahead. I'll send you clips. You'll see. He could be a legit NFL running back. I'm not. He looks like Maurice Jones-Drew. He just runs people over.
He's running against tackling dummies in the USFL, isn't he?
I don't know, man. There's a certain... So the fact that he's dominating them, doesn't that mean that he is, like...
the king of the dipshits?
Well, does that not mean that he is too good for that league and belongs elsewhere? If he were that good, if this were a school, wouldn't you move him up a grade?
Yeah, but I'd move him from 3rd grade to 4th grade, not 3rd grade to college.
I don't know, man.
Okay, so
but you have to look at football as an individual position kind of thing. Running back, the level of difference there.
Well, let me ask you a question. Let's get a little more general with this, since we're, first of all, no pun intended, and second of all, we're kind of talking about this. As one of the 4 people watching this league, the overall level of play, talent level, I mean, what are we looking at here?
So the teams, some individual, if you look at it like me, you'll see individuals even on the bad teams that are good. The problem with these teams is that this was their first year, and it all hinges on their quarterback selection. So the teams that are bad are really bad because they banked on former NFL names like Clayton Thorson and Kyle Lauletta at quarterback, and spoiler, they were bad for a reason. So those teams that have no answer at quarterback, those teams are really, really bad, and it's going to be difficult. You'd have to look at it with an analytical eye to see the players that are good. But the teams that nailed the quarterback position and just got a guy that was capable, that they could work with and could run an offense that they could design, they have an actually good team that make it easier for you to see the guys that stand out. Do you know what I'm saying?
Let me ask
So
you
like,
something.
so like when people say like, has the product gotten better? It's like when you get the right two teams playing against each other. Yes, even the bad teams have good guys. They just fucked up the quarterback spot. That's really it.
What are there? 4 teams in this league right now?
8. There's
There's
8.
8. Okay, so it's not too big. Has the level of play, is it better than what you saw from the XFL?
Yes, but I remember the XFL was only like 3 weeks, wasn't it?
Or what about the other league that was out there?
Yes, it's definitely better than the AAF. Also, the rules are less silly. They seem to be testing out little things, but mostly just pro-style rules and pro-style gameplay. And also, like, as they've figured out their rosters, the league has gotten better since week 1, 2, and 3. You know what I mean? Like, they kind of did their own real quick shuffling at the beginning of the season, the same way the NFL did.
And I noticed there's going to be an XFL again next year, and they just announced some coaches, and they're like real names.
Yeah. So somebody like postulated that there's a chance that the two leagues could merge as a minor league for the NFL.
Well, I mean,
because they both have legit money. One's backed by Fox Sports, and the other's backed by The Rock, who he like grossed the most money of all actors like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the thought of a minor league, I mean, I think it's helped the NBA having the G League, having an organized league where you can pool players and help their development.
I do too.
And
the fact that it happens in spring means you get to know what these guys are like before cutdown day and training camp, before training camp even starts. I think it's a cool idea. You don't have to watch it. You know what I mean? Nobody watches the D League.
If you have to watch, or else the league goes away because it's all dependent.
Well,
on
true,
you.
yeah.
So they're kind of banking on you. You have to watch it.
Well,
I mean,
I'm doing my
God's
part.
sakes,
You're welcome, everybody.
They're all playing in Birmingham, so it's like they don't care about attendance. It's,
Yeah, they're doing that to start up.
Like,
yeah, you're right.
It's like wrestling. It doesn't matter where it's just ambiguously where it is. It's just that it's on TV.
Yeah. In any case, I didn't mean for that to be a whole thing. Please, 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 we will see you all next week on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, and most importantly on YouTube. We will have our big 300th episode with all our special guests. So please, 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 please follow us on Twitter and subscribe to us on YouTube so you guys can see that when it drops next week. I hope you guys enjoy it.
Yeah, if you could smash that subscribe button. We just hit a milestone for the number of subscribers, which we really appreciate, and I still can't believe anybody listens to us.
Me too.
Hit that subscribe button. If you're on iTunes, give us a 5-star rating and a happy review. You can say what kind of a dick I am for all the things that you don't like about me. That's completely fine. But no, we really appreciate all the support, and we have a very, very special show this week coming up. I think everybody will really love.
I'm legitimately excited to do it.
Yeah, I think it's something that we'll be proud of this one. This will be one you'll really, really enjoy. So,
So we hope to see you all next week. Please don't freak out at any minicamp stuff, and we will see you all then. Go Giants.
Go Giants. Go Bolts.